Hi everybody, Dave Wallace. If you remember a couple weeks ago I talked about this thing called the hammock. And this is representative of the attention span that your audience has during the course of a presentation. High attention at the beginning and the end, very low attention in the middle, which is generally where all your good stuff is. So, as suggested by George Lucas, you have to have a hot opening, you have to have a hot closing, but you can't F up the middle. Last week I shared a little bit about hot openings, and you can go back and review that if you want. What I want to talk about today is this middle part. Because even if you have a really hot opening, even if you blow their socks off, the decision-making part of our brain is driven by adrenaline, which means it's very energy consuming. So therefore it's going to get tired. And at some point along the way, the attention span of your audience is going to start to head into this hammock. And if you don't do anything to spike their attention, then you're going to lose them even if you have a hot opening. So it's not over just because you have a hot opening. And this is going to happen a series of times over the course of your presentation. So you need to be able to do something that's going to keep them focused on the story that you're telling. Make sure that they remember the things you want them to remember. Now, there's a term for these things. It's not a very technical term. It's called a grabber, because they're designed to grab the attention of your audience. Now, grabbers have a couple of things, or maybe more than that, that you need to keep in common or in mind. Number one, it has to be, the grabber that you're going to use has to be consistent with the message that you're trying to deliver. So you can't just have a shock and awe grabber that doesn't really have anything to do with your business story. And you also have to make sure that it's properly placed in your conversation so that it drives attention at the point you want it to drive attention. Now, here are some other ideas for grabbers. I'm not going to go through all of them now, but I want to put them out there so you can think about them and how to incorporate them into your presentations. The first one is called a number play. Now, this is when you string together 2 or 3 numbers. You could use 1 if it's a fabulous number. But again, those numbers are designed to make a business point. The numbers don't have to be related to your business. They could be related to statistics from sports or from something else. As long as the business point that you're trying to make is driven home by the fact that you're using these numbers. That's called a grabber, and that's one way to get the attention of the customer. Another one is what's called what if you could. Saying what if you could is great because what it does is it forces your audience to think about, what if I could do that? That would be pretty cool. So what if you could see a 15% increase in your sales over the course of the next 12 months? And what if you could drive those customers from indecision to decision, even if they weren't thinking about making a change before they talk to you? Those are what if you coulds. Another grabber that's very effective is a prop, a physical prop. Now, some of you are probably in businesses where you bring props with you, whether it's swatches if you're in the clothing business, or maybe it's your software, something like that. But a prop is a very effective use of a grabber to spike attention. Really creative props are those that seemingly on the surface have nothing to do with your business. I saw a demonstration one time of someone who was in the healthcare business, and they used Legos as a prop to take a very complex subject and synthesize it down to a very simple and really effective message. So again, think about your business. Think about a business point that you're trying to make, and is there a prop that you can use that will work? Now, here's a key with props. Props are incredibly memorable, which is great. But props are incredibly memorable, which is bad if you screw up using the prop. So make sure that you've thought about how the prop is going to work. So that's another form of a grabber. Actually, writing on a whiteboard is a form of a grabber because the whiteboard itself, or the flip chart, is a prop. So that can be used to your advantage. Other things include metaphors and analogies. Those are very effective. They're a kind of a story, but again, you're kind of drawing from something that might be adjacent to the topic you're discussing, and you create this analogy. A lot of times those are used to handle objections. If someone has a very emotional objection to your proposal, you can't use a lot of logic, so you use a metaphor and analogy to reframe the objection. And finally, there's one prop that can actually, there's one grabber that can actually close the sale for you if it's done properly. And that's called a customer story with contrast. Now the key is the contrast. All of you have great customer stories. But I'm betting if you send your customer your 9 best customer story PDF files that they don't get open, because you probably don't open the ones that come to you. So you have to be able to tell your story in the moment using some sort of a whiteboard so you can draw out the story. But you have to put contrast into the story. You have to be able to demonstrate the before and after. So your story might have some information over here about what was going on before the customer started doing business with you. And then you would contrast that, with some information over here that would talk about what the customer was able to do after they did business with you. So you created contrast in 2 ways. Number 1, with color, and number 2, spatially on the flip chart. So these are some ideas for some attention grabbers in the middle of your presentation. Now you have to think these through. You can't just wing it. It's just like everything else. This is not, with all apologies to Allen Iverson, you got to practice. Now, if you'd like to learn more, there's an email at the end of this video. And as always, thanks for your time.